I'm delighted to be here today with Gillian Elizabeth. Welcome to the Wellness Unwrapped podcast.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you for asking me.
Oh,
and congratulations on doing it as well. I think it's wonderful
what
you're achieving.
Thank you so much. So Gillian was actually introduced to me through a mutual contact of ours just last year. So you're a relatively new friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I kind of immediately just thought that you had such a vibrant energy about you. So just to give listeners a very short resume of what it is you do, in your own words, you've had a very colourful life, and you put all experience as working progress towards your PhD in life experiences, which you use along with your nursing, grief and loss counselling, coaching, mentoring, art therapy, reiki and celebrancy qualifications. So celebrancy being doing funerals and weddings and so on.
Yes, that's right.
And you've developed your own business called Emotional Prospects to offer personal development to children, men and families in a very creative way. So whether it's one-to-one or in groups or in the workplace.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on today to talk about the subject of joy in our lives. Yes. Because I think that the whole topic of wellness can get very bogged down in things like, nutrition and how much we're exercising every day and counting our steps and all the rest of it. And while all of that is without doubt, hugely important, I think that it's nice to focus on things that feed our soul as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've realised that over the years that I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't have found ways of feeding my soul.
Oh, so give us a bit of background about how you've got to be doing this work.
Through lots of, as you kindly introduced, the PhD of life experience, I feel like I'm putting it all in the pot now. So I've experienced my nursing, I've used my counselling, my coaching. I ended up doing some art therapy work by going to the Tate in Liverpool, and in 2011 joined a painting class, and it was about development and using that, and I sort of grew from that, and I ended up with a painting in the Tate, and it sort of went, tick that box, I've achieved something here, alongside with other people as well. But
and you had no experience,
none at all.
You just went along to a painting class.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I did. But it made me realise it was actually a really big turning point, because it was like anything's possible. I didn't ask for this; it sort of came to me. So part of that was the joy of just following this pathway, not knowing where it was going to lead you to. And I think that's one of the big secrets, certainly, that I would like to share, is to not to look too far ahead, to just be conscious that where you are at the moment, whatever that emotional state is or whatever is happening, that's where you're meant to be. And when you sort of accept that, it makes it a bit easier. That doesn't mean you feel terrible sometimes and different things happen, but it's just that's where you're meant to be.
Yeah. And actually, thinking about it, when I've seen you the past few times, you've actually had a quite challenging time because you haven't had anywhere to live or to have a shower. No. And yet, I have to say, had that been me, I would have been moaning and panicking. And whenever I've seen you, you've almost treated it like a bit of an adventure.
Yes,
and I've come to lunch in your little, it's a potting shed. It's a potting shed where you are living, and then you've made beautiful food for people, and then you pop your bed down, you, from the wall.
Right. And yes, and so in some ways it's sort of bringing a bit of the child out, which I really think that's one of the secrets of being joyful as well, is remembering that, seeing it as an adventure. And if I hadn't have placed myself in that place and had all these different people being intrigued almost by who this grey-haired woman was who'd moved into the area, then I wouldn't have met along the line all these wonderful people, and different things wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have been prepared to do that. And it didn't come easy, and there were times when I was very cold and did feel very lonely, but actually it's not about feeling sorry for myself or anybody feeling sorry for me. I did it, and I made a choice, and from that, literally, the spring is on its way, and I am, everything's blossoming, everything's coming through, and so my business is starting to grow and people are starting to hear about me, And I've actually haven't really done anything apart from just be physically present and invited people in as well. So it's very much about physical connection and meeting people and talking and having conversations. So, I've created a sort of concept of conversations in the potting shed, and I've been having those with a wonderful neuropath, and we've been working together and doing things that would never have happened if I hadn't have been in that place at that time.
Yeah.
And we've created something as well that we're looking at.
We have
a creative hub.
A creative
All
hub.
All these
yes.
things are happening. So
yeah.
What joy is that bringing?
Yeah, and that's what I feel about you whenever I see you. You do have this kind of radiant energy that whatever is going on for you, you always seem to be able to reframe it in a kind of, and this happened. And often make really light of it. Things which I have to say, I'm not sure, I would think I would have struggled to make light of. But you do have this playful quality, and that's a big part of you, isn't it?
It is a very big part of me, and that is something that as I get older actually becomes stronger, not weaker. And I can be very serious if I need to be, but I also realise that actually life is too short. And if we don't bring those joyful things in, or those playful things, or just sit and go, what am I doing? Well, what is life about?
Yeah,
I have stories to tell my grandchildren. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, my children already know I want to be called Lolly, and
Lolly.
And I just I'll tell them stories about
And we tend to get stories when we put ourselves out in unusual situations. That's when we get these stories that are fun. And I remember when I went out for a walk with you last year, and I'm used to people asking me about what I eat and how I eat and what movement I do and all the rest of it. But you asked me a different question. You said to me, and what do you do for fun? And it kind of threw me for a second, and it took me a couple of seconds to think of things, and then I did manage to tell you things that I now do for fun. But I think if you'd have asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have been like, I would have been completely floored.
Yes.
And I think I would have thought, fun, isn't it enough that I work and I hold the family together and I put dinner on the table and I'm running backwards and forwards? Isn't that enough? And now you want me to find fun as well? And I think that a lot of women kind of feel that way and have perhaps lost that whole sense of fun and that sense of joy. And I know certainly when I'm coaching, I think men tend to be better at this somehow.
Yeah, they are in one way, and for some reason, they'll go off and have a game of golf, or they'll go and do this, or go and ride a car, or cycling, or something quite physical. And I'm still working that one out, if I'm honest. But with women, I think we actually sometimes we need to just do it and not overthink it and not worry that is a tea raid or is the bed's made,
because there's always another thing to do,
or have I done something. Well, actually there's an element in us all that we need to just go, well, you know what, it'll just have to wait. And we actually don't need to be running round the shops on a Saturday when half the world is and we're all stressed. Are there other ways to look at things, or are there other times to go, or it's just maybe just reframing it a little bit. And that you might say, well, that's fine because I haven't got that responsibility of young children. But even when I had young children, I never sort of did those things. That I would always look at a time when it was a little bit calmer, or I could still fit other things in. Or actually just look in the cupboard and go, you know what, I don't even need to go shopping because I've actually probably got more than enough in the cupboard to make food, but it's just that it's not in front of my eyes. So it's just just going that bit further with things.
I think it is hard for women when we get locked in this kind of doing, helping, running around type mode. And I know for example, I was coaching a guy in his 50s last week, and it was brilliant because he'd spent the previous evening doing a Lego project. 3 hours.
Wonderful.
3 hours solid, and I was so happy for him. It was brilliant. It took him away from doing stuff that he was trying to stop doing in terms of eating. And then the same day I had a couple of ladies exactly the same age, and we really were working towards them having a cup of tea because
Oh,
that
yes.
that was where they were,
Yes.
and that was what they wanted
Yes,
to do.
yeah.
That was what they wanted to work towards, was to actually sit and have a cup of tea. I remember asking one lady, so what would light you up? You know, what would joy look like to you? And she said, honestly, she said, just closing the door and sitting in the toilet with the door locked. And that was where she was. And actually her children were not even little. They were 3 teenagers. But she felt so put upon, so dragged down by the constant mum this, mum that. And it can feel suffocating, can't it? And it's very difficult in those moments to think about anything, and you lose sight of what would light you up. It's just like, I want to just shut myself away.
It's that simple, what I call simple abundance of things, that you can look at something. You know, you can go in the garden and pick some flowers if you're lucky enough to have that, or you know, you can make a lovely cup of tea and sit down. But I think, again, because everything's so home focused, with a woman, that it's almost as though there's something, when it comes to a possibility of going out of the home, that can be quite hard, because it could be confidence, it could just be that actually I just want to have a bit of space here on my own. And I always suggest that when those times come, actually push yourself to go out and do something, and do it. It's a bit like when you don't want to do it and then you do it and you think, I realise now. I was a bit fearful, or I was a bit unsure, or it was a new thing, so I wasn't, you know, entirely convinced that was the right thing for me. But you can only find out if you try. And so it's having conversations as well with women as well as men, but and having these conversations, and you're amazed what comes out of things when you talk to people. But
so true. It's so true. And for example, I met a lady at pottery just the other day, and she's 67, and she just had this vibrancy about her. And we got chatting, and she told me that she was studying fine art at university, which is surprising in itself at 67. And she looked at me, she said, I am having the time of my life.
Absolutely.
And it's not often you hear someone say that. I mean, maybe someone on a gap year when they're 19 and they're going around Southeast Asia, but it's really unusual to hear a lady in her mid-60s saying, I'm having time of my life. She left school at 15, she'd never gone to university, and now she'd gone back to do something that she loved. She then told me about a life drawing class at the Lowry, and I was like, oh, that's not for me. And she said, no, you should come. It's fine for beginners. I went, and I got a lot of stick for that from my family when I explained what life drawing was. It's actually drawing a naked person. And people are like, oh my goodness, what are you doing that for? Isn't it weird? And blah, 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 blah. But actually, I really enjoyed it. And I'm now kind of like, do you know what, I'll go back and I'll do a different. And I was crap at drawing at school. I've never drawn since. You know, I'm not an arty person, but there's that whole thing of creativity versus...
Very much so. And one of the most important things is that, and I hear this all the time, is that, you know, just to finish on the subject of women, that I think it's really important as well that we look at our ancestral line. And I had a grandmother who, even in her late 80s, was still delivering books around the hospital and doing all sorts of things. And she wasn't old in her eyes, and, you know, still very much involved with politics and all sorts of things. And just, you know, she was a force of nature in that regard. So I think sometimes it's, you know, what we're modelled upon, or what examples we're given in life. But and we're at a generation now where our children want to fly the nest, they want to travel, they want to do things, and actually now we're seeing that as permission as we get older. So sometimes it's a natural order of things that don't ever rule out, you know. And so it might be that yes, there's a time when we need to be at home, we need to do this and need to do that, but then once that ends, or at least starts to change, start looking at other things and going, what other direction? Don't see it as an ending, see it as a possibility of a new beginning.
Yes.
You know, and a new venture, a new chapter, or whatever it is, and try all those different things.
And I'm thinking now of somebody I know who is in her early 60s, who's just recently retired, and she's a really bright lady. She's got loads about her, is interested in lots of different things, and she's now starting to do yoga and starting to learn this and that. But her mother is saying like, well, you're too old. You're too old to start doing that. You're too old to be running around this. You're too old. So it can be, I think other people sometimes have these
too much influence.
Preconceptions about what is appropriate for us and what's appropriate for us at this time or that time. And it can be hard to kind of go against that flow and say, well, sod that. I'm going to go and do it anyway. So tell us about the barriers that we put up to finding things that we really want to do.
Lots of barriers. And I think one of the biggest things that I hear all the time is, I haven't got time or I haven't got the money. It's those two things frequently come up, and then you haven't got time. Okay, well, let's look at that, and you can start on the time management and those things. But actually, one of the biggest barriers is actually money, because people see that being creative or bringing joy into your life has to cost money, and it's like the magazines tell us we have to do this, or we have to look that way, or we have to behave in a particular way. And my question is to everybody, and ask yourself, do I? And you don't actually. And the greatest joy you can find is when you start to create things from nothing, or looking out there and seeing what's there, what's in front of your nose, what doesn't cost very much money. And this sort of era, people have huge mortgages and all sorts of things, and actually I think that's a block sometimes as well, that we make financial investments, which I understand why, and I've been in that place myself, but then it stops you from doing other things. And I think we tie ourselves up a bit in knots, and we're not ever just happy. And we might have a house that is more than enough, but we feel we need more. But what the one perception that isn't looked at, or concept, is then how can we do the joy stuff?
So how can people if there are women listening who, and I see this often, where you ask them, what do you love to do, and they say, I have no idea. I don't know. Nothing. Do you have any hobbies? No. Did you ever like anything? And we have to really dig back and go way back for them to remember, oh yeah, I did used to love singing in the choir when I was 12, but I couldn't do that now. So how do people who are overstretched, how do they get in touch with the real, what lights them up, what they actually want in life?
Okay, one of the best things to do is start reading children's books again. Go back to children's books, because children's books are full of imagination. Or if you don't read a book, watch a children's film, or listen to something, or watch children play, because the inner child in us, that's most of the time what the joy is. It's the child. And we've grown up, we've been little children, and then we've come to teenagers, and then we become an adult. And when you're an adult, you're supposed to be very sensible and not do these things. And actually, that's the complete opposite. And then we give our children permission to be playful and stop playing ourselves. And the best people I know in the most sort of loving, productive families is when they all play together and they do really funny things together, and it doesn't cost very much, and they just get the jigsaws out. And I would advise you to get a jigsaw and go.
Do you know, I hate jigsaws. I have to tell you, Gillian, that's just not for me. Although I have clients who love them and it's changed their lives, but I think it's really difficult for women who when we're, and guys as well, when we're so I guess we're brainwashed to be always constructive and productive and ticking off the next thing on our list, and getting down on the floor and playing. And I hate board games as well. It just seems like such a waste of time.
I know, it's a mindset though, isn't it? And the other mindset is taking time to, while you're washing the dishes, listen to the radio, or listen to another's radio station that you wouldn't normally listen to. I mean, I'm a great advocate for Radio 4, because I just think it's incredible. And how many people have listened to Women's Hour and they go, oh, Women's Hour, no,
it's not for me.
Not for me. Or it's a little bit too pretentious. Well, actually it's not, because they cover, and they do an evening Women's Hour as well, and they cover some really racy subjects, and I think go into that, listen to that. So it opens your mind up to listening, to seeing, go out for a walk, look around, see what you like, even looking at architecture, what type of building do you like? What would you like to do? What would you like to go through the door? Would you like to, go and visit those people in that house? Or would you like to do this? And I used to push a pram with my youngest daughter around and look at people's hanging baskets and gardens and get an idea of the gardens I would like. And that didn't cost anything. I just did it. And then that got me into garden design and looking at gardens and thinking and and following that modality.
You seem to be a lifelong learner. And I kind of get the feeling that till your last day, you're going to be learning more and more stuff.
Yes, I have to say, one of the other things, and it is... I would like to just touch on it a little bit, is a barrier of learning. And very often women, I come across this a lot with women and sometimes with men, that I actually had my diagnosis at 55 of being dyslexic. And that can be a learning skill, can be a real barrier. And so people might have gone to school, they might have done a particular job, and again, women in particular, and then had children, either been at home or just carried on to suit, work around the family. And that's absolutely fine. But very often when an opportunity comes to further yourself or look at a course or do something, people look at it on an exam basis, or can I do this and can I do that? And those things come out again if they're already there.
Those insecurities.
Yes, yeah. So they come out again. So it's that mindset of I couldn't possibly do that or couldn't study that. And I've met some incredible people over the years who have so many learning issues or different things, and they've overcome them. They've overcome them because they found another way. They haven't followed a straight line. They found a way of getting around it. So there's always a possibility. It's just actually having a conversation. And once you own it, we don't talk with our friends enough, or even our close friends, and certainly our partners, about those aspirations and things maybe we'd like to do and how we could do it. And I'm actually seeing it more with men as well at the moment, that more and more men in midlife are wanting to make a change of direction. And they don't know how to do it because they're tied into so much. And so we have to look creatively at how you can do that, or how maybe your partner could support you and you can change, or the vice versa. So there's a lot of changes taking place now. People aren't staying in jobs for life. They're wanting to change midlife or a few times throughout life. So that gives another aspect of challenges, really. So alongside that, how do you do it? What can you do? I think reading all sorts of manner of books is really important, and certainly books that you would never have looked at and gone, I'm not interested in that. You might find something out.
And you say that at a time when people are kind of reading books less and less, because obviously they're on the phone.
They are.
And they're in bed right up until they put their head on the pillow, just scrolling through Facebook or YouTube videos.
Listen to a book. Don't read it. Listen to a book. Read it. Have somebody read a story to you. And do those things, and it's so nurturing, and it goes back to the child again. That nurturing, somebody reading to you, somebody doing something for you. It's wonderful for women to do that because somebody's doing something for you. They're actually reading to you.
Yeah, I get that, because I'm currently just reading the Harry Potter books to my daughter, rather she's reading them to me. Yes. I'm kind of nearly finished them now. Yeah. And I think if you'd have told me maybe a couple of years ago that I'd have to sit through listening to all those books, I would have been driven round the bend. Like there's no way I could just sit there listening. I would have to do something at the same time, like somehow find a way to work at the same time or something, pretend I was listening. Yes. But actually, firstly, they're works of genius, and I've really enjoyed listening, and that process of her reading them to me has been amazing. I think I'll miss that when we've got to the end of them.
Absolutely. But the backstory to that in itself, and I often say to people as well, look at the food on your plate. How did that get there? Trace it. That you can do that at home. It opens up so many stories with just by the food on your table. that Harry Potter books, how she achieved that is quite remarkable.
It really is. It really is.
That in itself is a wow, anybody can do it moment, you know, and we can't, I think one of the most important things is we can't have it all straight away. So we have to actually work at things, and we have to be prepared to put ourselves out there a little bit and do different things.
And I guess disregard what people may think of us, because I think that's a big fear. And I hear that often among women of my age is like they wouldn't go somewhere by themselves because they just need the security of going to the cinema with somebody or what would people say about them. And I think we do have that fear of being talked about as being a bit different, because no one... And I know you're quite happy about being different, but I think a lot of us would be uncomfortable with the one standing out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you don't have to always stand out. In fact, I often say to people, well, if we were all like I am or all like you are, well, actually it would be boring as well, because we need a cross section of things. It's just that so many people, when you share a story with them, it's like my hair, you know, I have my grey hair, and it's hilarious when I first started, you know, doing the grey bit, and my children were the worst, you know. At one point I couldn't actually FaceTime my daughter who was in Australia, because she just saw me as, Mum, that's what grannies do, you know, they grow their hair grey. So actually for the whole time she was in Australia and New Zealand, we didn't FaceTime, because it was just this, but now she thinks it's fine. And you have to... You know,
and you were determined to stick with it.
Yeah, because I wanted to do it.
You wanted to do it.
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to do it. But when it comes to doing things like going to the cinema or doing those things individually, you know, you have to do them and feel comfortable with it. But it's I'd say take that extra step. Just try something. Go and sit in a coffee shop with a book on your own, you know. And actually, it's incredibly liberating. And it's wonderful because you can just sit and watch.
Yeah, I actually did that last week. I happened to be in Manchester giving a talk, and then I found this beautiful cafe, which is all around books. Mm-hmm. And I happened to have a novel with me, and I just got a rose tea. Mm-hmm. It was in beautiful china, like you serve, beautiful, and it was so lovely to sit. It was maybe half an hour, nothing more than that. Yeah. But my goodness, it felt really decadent to do that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And it is. And so even with that response to that particular situation, I think we can be a little bit contrary in that we want space, but then if we've got opportunities to take it, we don't. So, you know, just push yourself, even once a week, just do something that takes you out of that comfort zone, or make a phone call with somebody, or go into, even if you just walked into a shop that I don't really think that's interesting for me, go to an art gallery, just do something that is different to what you normally do. Yeah. And you find that it opens up a conversation, because not only that, when you get home, you might say to your family, who are likely to say to you sometimes, so that's a bit bonkers, Mum, why did you do that? Or, you know, that's not normal. You know, going back to the grey hair, my children used to say, but Mum, can you not just dye your hair a certain colour and have it cut a particular way? And you know, almost wear certain type of clothes, etc., etc. And I said, no, I can't. And because that's not who I am. You're trying to mould me into something that I don't want to be. And so I would say the same thing with going out and doing things and finding joy in sitting in a coffee shop. Yes. And having a lovely cup of tea.
It was lovely.
How nice is that?
It was gorgeous. And actually what you said about going to an art gallery, I also did that recently, where I'd given another talk that day, and the art gallery is just by the Metrolink in Manchester, and you can walk in. I mean, it's free. Mm-hmm. And just to spend maybe 45 minutes after the talk, just walking around. Yes. And it's, I would have walked past that gallery so many times on the way to a meeting, or if I was going shopping, whatever. And you just walk past. Yeah, you do. You don't even see it. No. And yet it's just thinking, do you know what? I'm actually going to go in the art gallery this afternoon for an hour, just for me, by myself.
Absolutely. Even things like, looking in the freezer. This is home-based. Look in the freezer. How many of us have got a freezer around of food? Most of us, yeah?
Absolutely.
How many times, I remember saying this to somebody once, going, tell you what, why don't you just use all the food up in the freezer for the next week or so and make sure you use it all up, and then all that money you'd saved, you could go and treat yourself to something and do something really nice for yourself. And then, I never even thought of that, because I'd feel guilty, or I'd do this, or, well, go and do it. Go and do it, because you're still providing, it's food on the table, but it's that balance as well of the guilt and not doing those things. And we do have to change our mindset. We really do. And it isn't about doing hugely, again, I keep coming back to expense, but it is expensive things. It's actually very simple things, really. And how many times do we connect with friends and think that we have to go out for, a lunch? Could we not go for a walk?
Yes, I do
and
that
take
now.
some sandwiches, or just take a lunch, or share a lunch, or just, have a conversation and do something a little bit different.
Oh, it's so true. It's actually one of my favourite things to do because we live near a beautiful park, Devon Park, and I will, instead of meeting a friend for a coffee now, and occasionally I will do the normal coffee or lunch thing, we will go for a walk. Yeah. And I have, different friends who I go, on different days, and just that walking and chatting for 45 minutes, an hour, and whatever it is, heavy stuff that I've gone with, or something that has irritated me or just was worrying me, and there's something about just walking and talking with a friend in beautiful greenery and nature that is completely rejuvenating. And every single time I've come away thinking, I feel completely different. I cannot believe that an hour ago I was stressing about this or that. Yeah. And it's free, as you say, and such a beautiful, and you're getting movement, so it's win-win.
But even doing different things, like a friend of mine, her daughter's really into football, and I went with her to watch Man U ladies the other week, and it's a lot cheaper than going to a mainstream football match, I might add, and I was amazed how many people were there. But I was watching and observing people and behaviours and different things, and families and boys and girls and everybody, and so I thought, oh great, this is wonderful, this has really set me up for the week, because now with my work and other things I can use that as a metaphor for other things, and we forget that everything has a metaphor as well. Yeah. So an experience can feed into something else.
So what you're saying is that we are more productive ultimately, because when we make time for these joyful, creative things, they then enhance everything else.
They do. How, between the two of us, every time we've met, we've probably... There's enough time and there isn't enough time, because there's a constant conversation and interest and hunger, I would say. And I'd ask a woman or a man or a child or anybody, what are you hungry for? What is it that, you're hungry? Because actually the metaphor for that is we open the fridge and we don't know what we want to eat. That's the classic thing. And then so we close the fridge and go and get something else, or go, I don't know what I want. And very often we do that with joy. We do that with many things in life.
Or we may look at what someone else is eating, but that's actually not what lights us up.
Yes. And so how do you know what you...
How do you know? This is the thing. This is the big question, isn't it?
So for me, I will go in a clothes shop, and a particular clothes shop, and try on clothes, and I'll go, oh no, that just doesn't feel right to me. But I'll try it on to see what I look like, because I've noticed people wearing something and I think, I'll have a little try of that. And then I'll try it and go, no, but I'll go in and do it. I remember taking my eldest daughter to Madrid, and we walked around, and she wanted to go into all these Dior shops and, all these expensive places. And we went in with our really very basic bags. And I said, yeah, okay, come on, let's go and have a look. Let's walk in. So we did. And we just smiled and laughed, because, we weren't going to actually purchase anything. But we were prepared to go in and experience that. And, I've done similar things with my children, in that we've had a Chinese meal in one restaurant. We have one course, another restaurant we have another course, to experience the different restaurants and different ideas.
So you've gone around 3 restaurants in one evening?
Yeah, and tried different courses in different places. Wow. So that's, but you could do that with your family, and not, maybe some people wouldn't want to do it, but you can do those things.
I just think most of us wouldn't ever think about that.
Yeah.
Because it's not the norm.
No. Or how many people would go to a restaurant and actually they're not that hungry, so they order a main course and leave it, where just order a starter and have 2 starters. Yeah. I did that with my parents once, and my they were both really twitchy, and no, you can't do that. No, you have to have a starter, a main course and a dessert, or you just don't have a starter and you have a main course and a dessert, or one. Or I said, no, we can have something else. oh, right, okay. And now they started doing that all the time.
So it's getting away from a set menu in
yes.
life as well.
But then what that does is it isn't necessarily the act of doing that, it's then the conversation that I know they would go and see their friends and say, you know what, have you ever tried that?
Yeah.
And it's that, do you know what, have you ever tried that? Or have you ever thought you could do that? And that's the essence of it. It's not, once you've done it, then you can move on to something else. But it's just that what it enhances within your life. It enhances a conversation. It enhances an experience. It enhances many things.
And you don't need to stick with it. So you could try going to a gallery and then think it's not for you. You could try doing life drawing. It doesn't mean that we're not doing it for work, so you can just have a go.
Yeah, I've just started piano lessons.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I've always wanted to learn the piano. And so I had my first lesson last week and I loved it. And so every day I've been practicing my scales and doing it, and I've realised there are benefits to your hands and the strength that I'm going to build in my hands. But not only that, I'm actually going to work on my balance within my left and right brain because of doing this. So it isn't just playing the piano, it's my mind. So I actually saw a friend at the weekend who was really struggling, and I said, have you ever, they have a keyboard, and I said, have you ever thought that you just need a bit of balancing going on here and different things? And she said, no. So I said, have a go at this. So she started playing I showed her how to do the scales. So she said, phoned me up yesterday and she said, Jill, I don't know what's going on, she said, but every morning I'm doing these scales and I just feel completely balanced.
Oh, that's so inspiring.
But I only went to play the piano.
Yeah.
And we can all do that.
And I think kind of hearing you talking about that almost gives other people permission to think, well, actually, I'm not too old to learn guitar or piano, whatever it is that I always wanted to do and I never got round to it.
Yes.
And actually, I could do it. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of the very famous piece of research that was done on people who were sort of at the end of their life. And their biggest regret was that they hadn't lived their own life. They'd lived according to other people's expectations of what they should do.
Yes.
And what an awful thing to kind of end your days. They're in a hospice and that was their final regret. Yeah. And
a really, really good point is the bucket list and those
the bucket
things.
List.
Yeah. Because the bucket list very often has these, amazing holidays and this, that, next thing. And they're fantastic if you can achieve it, and really well done you if you can. But actually most of it is unattainable. So we make it unattainable. So my sort of, I suppose, philosophy and life living is that you try and do things that are attainable. And the simple things. A friend of mine, I went to his house one day and we sat there and we made scones. And we sat there and talked and laughed our socks off, making scones and reminiscing and talking about things. But it reminded him of a parental connection. And that was very important to him. So we used that. And it was just a beautiful time, but it was so simple. And then we sat and ate them and covered them in butter and relished all of that. But that was a lovely thing. You can
and that
all
for me
do
is
that.
health, because yes, you could talk about, well, it's got sugar in it, it's got this and that, the other, but the wellness that you get from laughing with a friend and just being in a state of flow and making something, and that enjoyment, that is so much better for your health than being so rigid about I've got to have this number of vegetables, but having no joy in your life, I'd much rather what you talked about, and yet we're not really encouraged to do that. No. I don't think.
I worked with a family not that long ago, and there was lots of things going on. But one of the things that I said to them is, please start baking cakes. And he looked at me and said, what on earth do you mean? We haven't got time to bake cakes. I said, well, can we just look at this and can you start making cakes? And what was happening on a Saturday was, instead of all rushing around doing different things, and they still had commitments to make, but they made time and they made a cake. They either made it collectively or mum or dad made it. But the smell from the cake brought everybody into the kitchen. Oh. So the kitchen then connected everybody. So that's joy.
It is. And joy is so integral to our health.
It is. Yeah. If I don't get joy in my life, or something that gives me joy, I actually feel very low, and it gets into almost every bone in my body, because it creates a sort of almost a sadness, because laughter, joy, fulfillment, simplicity, all of these little things, that they're all around us,
But I guess we have to be really intentional about prioritising them, because they don't just happen. Our lives are so busy and so overpacked.
Belly laughing, it's free of charge. It absolutely costs nothing.
So what are your tips for getting a belly laugh?
Well, belly laughs. I had just a very short story. I know I chat, but I will talk about this. My dog Molly, who passed away last year, was an amazing dog and so intuitive. And she always knew if I was happy or sad. She just knew it. And she was actually literally about to die. I nursed her dog at home. And my friend phoned this day, and this serious conversation started. And I was looking at Molly, and Molly was lying on the floor looking at me as if to say, Mum, I'll be okay. You could just feel it. So I picked a book off the shelf, and it was a sort of mocky mindfulness book, which there's a famous book scheme that we all know about. And I started reading this on the phone to my friend, and I literally couldn't stop laughing. I was it was achingly laughed. And I looked at my dog, and she looked at me, and it was, you're going to be okay, Mum. And actually, I want to see you be joyous, not sad.
Yeah.
And she actually passed during the night that night. But I felt, although it's a story like that, but actually she needed to know I was okay, but also see me happy. Yeah. And the difference it makes when somebody is happier or more joyous. And if you don't have that laughter, however form it comes in, you can watch a television program. I watched some programs the other day, and old Parkinson films, and some other things that were on, and they were all about comedy and laughter. Comedy is a great source of connection and making you laugh and taking it out of yourself. And we don't use that enough either.
We don't.
And children reading, if you've got young children, buy funny books. There's some fantastic, I love Spike Milligan and all of that, and looking at all the little odes and things he talks about. Read them and then find something funny in it. Read Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is incredible, and understand the depth of what she's actually saying and what's going on there.
Whoa, I think I'll be making a trip to the library. I don't think I even read it as a kid, to be honest. I never really liked it, but I will give it
I suggest you do, but for an adult, for children, for families, one of the big things is to visit the sea, to go to the woods, to go to the mountains, and go to the cities. Mm-hmm. Go to all of those places, because there will be a connection in one of those places for you. It might be all of them. I personally love all, but you might not love all. You might not like a city, but you like the sea. You might like to climb a mountain. You might like that space, but go and do it. And then find out and try it. Yeah. And if you live in a city, take yourself into the woods. Yeah. Go with nature and see how that feels. Some people are much happier in the city, but the city is so vibrant and has so much going on and so many things happening. If that's what fills your soul, do it. Just do it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that. So just to end off, are there any final thoughts you want to share with people?
I think in investment, I actually wrote some little notes here, and there's one little thing that I've put. Once you get to know a little more about what touches your soul, then invest, but find it out first. Go and search for that. And it changes as well. It changes with our ages, it changes with our experiences, changes with many factors in life.
But it's never too late.
Never
too late.
But most importantly, if you can find what naturally can give you most joy, and we've talked about a few of those things, going out walking, doing things, reading, listen to the radio, then it's gold dust. It's absolute gold dust. It doesn't it doesn't cost anything, maybe some electricity because you've got a radio going or something like that, but it's really not, it's coming back to almost a very basic thing that we've lost touch with.
Yeah.
And then if it's that you find an interest in something, it's like my piano. I want to learn the piano. Well, I wasn't in a position to go and buy a piano and didn't feel it was right. So the person who told me about the piano lessons had bought a keyboard. So I bought the keyboard off her. She's now bought a piano because she's moved on. And eventually I'll move on to a piano. But it's actually doing it in that order. We don't have to have a Ferrari first. That's what I would say. Start with the simplest of things and find joy in that. And then you'll find joy in everything around you.
Oh, that's such a beautiful thought to end off with. And thank you so much, Gillian,
Okay,
for all the inspiration, for the inspiration that you give me off camera as well.
It's mutual because we have lovely conversations
We
and
do.
it's a mutual thing, and that's what's the beauty of this. It's never one person. We can inspire by lots of things.
That's so beautiful.
So thank you.
So where can people find you? You've got a website being built?
Yes, I have. I'm just in the throes of doing that, and that's another experience that's given me joy.
Will that be emotionalprospects.co.uk?
It will,
Okay,
yes.
cool.
And I'm based at the Potting Shed in Alderley Edge at the moment, and that's where I am. And I'm creating that space, and it's evolving. It is daily evolving almost, and about to start painting and getting things going. But yeah, and everybody that comes to visit and either just comes as in a friendship sense or in a therapeutic sense, actually feels very safe and comfortable there, and it's an ideal place.
Yeah, I'll second that. It's a very uplifting place.
Yes, yeah.
And I look forward to doing art therapy and all sorts of things in that lovely space.
And I think I have to rein it in, if I'm honest, about all the things that I want to do, because but I will achieve as much as I can.
I think you will. You will. So it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
You will. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.